This video is going to be about the concept of being woo-woo and some other things that I didn't feel comfortable writing about in the book. And we'll start right with that very word, woo-woo. When I very first began research into healing through journaling and the brain, and that led to gratitude journaling, which then led to writing and the brain, at every one of these stages, I felt like I had to have science back me up. I wasn't going to be able to go out in the world and run workshops and do talks, or even give people writing prompts without there being a solid ground in science, even though I am personally a little woo-woo. If you already know from reading the intro, if you've already read it, then you know that the studies that do exist on writing in the brain, learning in the brain, did not disappoint me at all, and I was constantly able to find more and more science to back up these principles. And I would like to reiterate one point. Even though I've been quite happy in my career as a writing instructor, truly love working with students at the college age, and I love the impact that I can have. And maybe very selfishly, I love that I am never, ever, ever bored because their writing is as unique as they are. And so I'm just constantly meeting new voices and individuals, and I love what I do. And I feel very lucky too that a job teaching at this level is affirming. Lucky that I get to develop wonderful relationships with students. I actually get to watch them grow, as do K through 12 teachers. I love that we live in an era in which keeping in touch with students, or even just stalking their Facebook pages, is acceptable, and I can check on them. But all of that said, this work, writing in the brain, teaching students about the benefits of making writing a learning tool in their life, is more rich than anything that I experienced beforehand. It's really meaningful to me when students tell me not only how much they've been helped academically and with the act of writing specifically, but I am moved by how much they say other areas of their life has improved. I could talk about just reading response journals, which I implement as part of the coursework in all of my classes, not just writing in the brain. Very recently, I just talked with my students for a little while about how it went, and what I hear most often is, to be honest, my true goal with all of this. And they tell me that because I asked them to keep a reading response journal, they saw the difference it made when it was time to participate in the classroom, when it was time to think about things, right? And they started implementing writing into other classes that they took. And even if they didn't do that, they do feel that writing other assignments, even for other courses, has become easier because they're doing so much writing. So there's an adage that you may have heard of. Many writers talk about it as writing as priming the pump. And people mean that in two ways, that it's okay to splash a little out when you're first pumping. Some of that stuff that first comes out is bad, and you have to get past that water with the sediment in it. So some people believe that, use that metaphor, priming the pump, to illustrate how we need a little bit of a warm-up sometimes when we're writing. But priming the well is also used to illustrate that when the well is primed, the water flows easily. Simply said, the more you write, the more you write, the easier the words come. And I will tell you that I have never had a student say that isn't true. They all agree that that has happened for them. So I never could have put this in the book, but I'm just going to tell you that since I do work with college students, I say pump the keg rather than prime the well, and assuming that most students probably have some personal experience with pumping a keg, whereas the vast majority, if any, have never pumped a well, right? So, it's a lot of fun to say, well, I know you don't know about this, but when you pump a keg, if you try to get a beer out of a keg that is not primed, you're just going to get a lot of useless foam, right? But if it's well pumped, the beer will just So I'm telling you, that metaphor sticks for them. And I just really would love to tell you this little anecdote. Several years ago, I had a student who wrote an essay about wanting an Oreo cake for his birthday cake. And his parents were in a volatile relationship. They actually did end up with a divorce, but when he was young, they were still together, and he said it seemed like their conflict was always at its peak around his birthday, and he never got that Oreo birthday cake. His essay was so well written that a few of the students in the class got teary-eyed after reading it, and it was something we kind of all talked about. This particular class, it was an intro creative writing. They really bonded and worked well together and walked that beautiful and difficult line of supporting one another but still giving each other constructive criticism. And I have never done this before or since, but I went to a bakery and got an Oreo cake and had them write "pump the keg" on it. And then I brought it to class, but when I picked it up at the bakery, the the clerk said, "I'm sorry, but we have to ask you, we've all been so curious, is this for somebody who's opening their own bar?" And I, of course, had to tell my students, and we all had a good laugh, and I hope they still tell that story because I tell that story. And a really remarkable experience that I had response very recently was a student that said she's been in therapy since about 8th grade with the same therapist who has constantly told her, please journal, please try journaling. I think journaling would help you. Why don't you journal? And that her response had always been, journaling doesn't work for me. That's not what I do. My brain doesn't want to do that. But then being asked to keep the reading response journal for our class made writing feel more natural and organic for her. And she now credited some advancements she's made in her own therapy to the act of journaling, and credits that to writing the reading response journal. So it was quite a moment for me. I have to tell you, it even sort of stopped the class. Everybody was really moved that she said it had made such a big impact on her life. I did something also that I never do and said, can I give you a hug? She stood right up with her arms like this, and the whole class loved it. It was another moment that I hope it felt like it was going to be a moment that the students will remember and will tell their friends and family about. So those two stories are probably my most extreme results, in positive, beautiful ways, and they didn't have a place in the book, so thank you for letting me share them with you now. Another really common story I hear is how they used to journal in middle school or high school, and they stopped for whatever reason, life getting in the way. And once they started journaling again, because of my class or in my class, the benefits came roiling back, and they are grateful that they found the practice again. More than one student, many students, has just told me that simply writing, the act of writing, makes them happy, and that it's just simply pleasurable to do so because they're never asked to do so. So if that happened alone, that writing made them a little bit happier, I think I would feel pretty satisfied. Of course, I've had students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and for whom